Alright, what's up everyone? I'm going to be making a very casual video on ideas that I want to kind of implement for the BK Rando version 3E. Now, this isn't going to be like me going into specifics. You can see like I only have 10 slides here. I made this PowerPoint slide in 10 minutes using LibreOffice. Fight me if you don't like LibreOffice. You should get PowerPoint. Well, I don't want to paper it. And I don't want to pirate it, so whatever. Uh, Basically, I want to go over kind of version 1, version 2 of the BK Rando. I want to go over some other N64 randomizers, and I want to go over what I want to do for the BK Rando itself. So, version 1 was literally, we need a rando. Why does Ocarina of Time and SM64 have a randomizer, but we don't? So, that one's just shuffling around some, items, and then changing the note door and, like, the picture for Door of Grunty to be like less so that you don't have to play the entire game. But it was the bare minimum for a randomizer. Version 2 was more logic based. It focused more on getting enough jiggies in order to progress the game, and it just assumed you can get enough notes. There's also a bunch of random fucking features that I threw on there. Like, the Treasure Trove Cove, the super slippery sand, whatever. And it's more like that was just like me saying like, hey, I can do this. Let's just put it as a feature. But the issue with version 2 is that there are too many features that fuck around your game, and people don't read what they click. They just click on a random button, and then they have a bunch of settings that they don't know what they do. So, um, version 3 is gonna have a mixture of less buttons to click, but just as many features, if not more. And I'm gonna go over basically what I'm gonna focus on for the rando. So, why isn't the BK Rando as popular? So there are other N64 randomizer games. Ocarina of Time has an amazing logic system, and like they have a bunch of quality of life features. Like they are what a lot of N64 randomizers aspire to be. So there's that. The SM64 randomizer, you start off with all the moves in the game, right? So it's just a matter of which levels do you kind of like to do, and where do you like to go, and like can you move around really well. And the freedom there is huge, and so I think people like SM64 randomizer for that. Plus, the creator made it so that you can make seeds within that ROM itself. You don't have to keep generating ROM. So shout out to Kaze. The DK64 randomizer has so many quality features. So, like for example, if you don't like that, you can switch. You have to go between all the monkeys to like explore the entire world. Well, now you can just switch by the press of a D-pad. I believe it's a D-pad. So it is literally base game but better. And then they have a bunch of other random features. Plus, they have Spike Vegeta, who is a avid Donkey Kong speedrunner, not just Donkey Kong 64, but also like Tropical Freeze and stuff like that. So they have representation there. Banjo-Kazooie does not have like a spokesperson, but we'll get to that later. So we kind of have someone, and yeah, we'll see. But anyway, by competing randomizers, I don't mean that I'm trying to take down the other randomizers. It's not what it is at all. It's how can we improve ourselves in order to like be a standout from the other randomizers. There is no competitive scene for the BK randomizer. In fact, there's barely a competitive scene for regular Banjo-Kazooie speedrunning. It's kind of dying. Because the Banjo-Kazooie current speedrun, the most popular one, besides Chartless, I'm going to push side Chartless, is 100%. Because the difference between 100% and any percent without specific glitches is about the same time. Now, if you do, Reverse Speed Adventure or DDA, whatever, it's a completely different route, but I don't think those are as popular for multiple reasons. But the 100% route is, a thing, and like people would run 100% more if it wasn't so long, and so if I could make a Banjo-Kazooie hack that was just a smaller version of the regular one, where it's like you just don't shuffle anything. It's just base game, but you don't have to collect as much. Then maybe there might be a competitive scene off that, but then everyone will just do the first 3 levels and then call it a day. Um, and which I don't think they want to do, because uh, BK is a very beautiful and exploring game, and everyone knows how to master Mumbo's Mountain, and it's the later levels that separate out the top runners from the other runners. So, and there's also a lack of consistent updates. That's mostly my fault. I am burnt out. What can I say? And I say mostly my fault because technically someone else could step up and take my throne. I'm not getting paid for this. There shouldn't be any expectation on me, and just people saying, Jiggly, you're a randomizer. I'm like, I don't want it to be my randomizer. I want it to be the community's randomizer. In fact, besides the README that says here's how you contact me, I don't call it my randomizer at any point. So that like really burnt me out. And I don't want to just carry a burden of being the BK rando guy. I want to do other things. I want to modify Kirby 64. I want to make a ROM hack of just, even if it's just BK or something like that, but just BK randomizer guy. It's just kind of like I'm more than just that. But anyway, moving on from that. So why not copy the other randos? So let's start with SM64. So in this randomizer, Mario starts off with every single move, and it's a bunch of like movement abilities, and there are scattered X, Y, Z positions for all the items. Now, this doesn't work for Banjo, seeing how you don't start off with all the moves. Now, if we could logically make it so that they have random X, Y, Z positions, and they're all scattered around. I actually have a feature like that in version 2 of the BK Rando. It's for Treasure Trove Cove only, and I don't even scatter them that far. They're within the same voxel. So, not voxel, sorry, a cube, my bad. Whatever's gonna kill me for saying that. They're within the same cube, and so basically the game is split up into cubes of 1,000 units by 1,000 units by 1,000 units. And I just move items randomly within that, but above the surface so that like they can be visible. And people didn't like that. And I think it's because 1, it doesn't look good, and 2, the draw distance doesn't help because BK is trying not to lag, and so it has a somewhat smaller draw distance, and people just didn't want to do that stuff. So SM64 has a lot of sprites instead of actual 3D models for like coins and sometimes even enemies like the Wigglers 2D. So I don't think BK can necessarily do scattered XYZ positions, maybe pseudo random positions where it's like, oh, that wasn't like that before, but it looks nice. Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. This one's getting a little closer to BK, where there are specific powers and items, and there are specific parts of like temples and stuff that are like, we want you to try to think about how to use this specific item. And so you're basically saying, yo, now that I have access to this and this, I can now go here. It's a 1 + 1 = 2. Kind of better, but issues are I don't believe, besides maybe like the hook shot or the shoes that let you like fly in the air for like a little bit, that there are a lot of movement based abilities in Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. Whereas Banjo-Kazooie, if you want to increase your jump height, there is high jump, which you get at the beginning of the game. You might not realize it, but that's why you can't jump over the fence. High jump. There's feathery flap. There's flap flip. There's Wonder Wing. There's Talon Trot. There's Turbo Talon Trot. There's Stilt Stride. There's Shock Jump Pad. There's Flight Pad. Did I name them all? That's 9 moves right there for increasing your jump height. And like some of them are dependent on whether shoes exist there or whether there's a pad there. So, I could just place a pad somewhere. I could just put shoes somewhere, but then it's not intuitive. People go to that area and then they're like, I can't do this area because I don't have a flight pad. But then there ends up being a flight pad somewhere, you know. So, um, doesn't necessarily translate well. Donkey Kong 64. Now this one's even closer to Banjo-Kazooie because it's a collectathon. Um, so the levels require a certain number of golden bananas for you to open them. You need to defeat the bosses in order to open up the next world, etc. Now the issue that doesn't translate well between Banjo-Kazooie and Donkey Kong 64 are soft lock decisions. So for example, in the lair, if you go to the Mad Monster Mansion puzzle, right, you'll see that there is a tunnel that goes up to the Rusty Bucket Bay puzzle that you can technically open up the worlds, right? If you raise the water to level 1, you can open up that grate in order to make the tunnel, you know, go through. But if you raise the water level to level 2, there is no way to go backwards. And now you cannot break that grate thing. Because I believe, does it require eggs or rat-a-tat-rap? Rat-a-tat, whatever. Either way, that is a soft lock decision on whether you open that up or not. And one path says you've opened up Rusty Bucket Bay, and the other path says you cannot open up Rusty Bucket Bay until you raise the water level to level 2, whatever, right? Or, I guess technically you can go around, but it interferes with loading zones, and that's where logic kind of gets weird. If I could just say fuck you to loading zones, that would make the logic so much easier. So, but unfortunately, it's a highly requested feature for the layer to be randomized. So, I'm still considering it, but we will see. I might leave the layer alone and then just randomize the warps within the levels, and we'll try it from there. The other restriction is, which we've actually gone past, shoutouts to Watarobi, is note saving. So in Donkey Kong 64, you collect a banana, it remembers it. In Banjo-Kazooie, there is not note saving until we implement Watarobi's note saving ROM hack, which will remove 2 of the save files in order for you to save your notes whenever you exit a level or die or whatever. Which is crazy to think about how he did that. But anyway, that's kind of why there's a issue there. Now, why is the BK randomizer logic unique? So there are multiple ways to platform. I already talked about how jumping is, you know, vastly different depending on what move you get. You are never required in the game to get Wonder Wing, ever. In fact, I think it's the only move where you are never required to get it. And I'm not even talking about from a speedrun or glitch exploit perspective. I am talking about as a casual, you can get through the entire game without Wonder Wing. Stilt Stride, as a speedrunner, you can get around not using that, but as a casual, you might not know how to do certain jumps and stuff, and so you might need that. For example, a beak barge you use literally 3 times the entire game, and otherwise it's never needed. Claw Swipe is also never needed. Rat-a-tat-rap is used frequently by speedrunners in order to do glitches and stuff. So the amount of platforming you can do with just your moves is insane. And I've already talked about how like all moves are not required, but players can top lock themselves. I already talked about the water level 2 area kind of thing, but also in Gobi's Valley, the water pyramid, there is a Mumbo token flying up in the sky, or whatever, and I think if you're really tight on the jump, you can technically get that token with the water level lowered there, but I don't even know if that's even possible, to be honest. So I think there are enough instances of soft lock that would require reevaluation, more or less. And there are also limitations with assembling, modifying the assembly. So Banjo-Kazooie's decomp is still in progress. Don't ask about the progress about it. Don't push anyone to work on it. It's up to them. It's a volunteer thing. No one's paying them. Just the same way I was burned out for the Banjo-Kazooie randomizer. So whenever that happens, it happens. Until then, I'm trying to learn assembly myself and make my own changes. But Ocarina of Time, I think, has their decomp done, and they can make a bunch of changes whatever they want to. DK64, I think, uses a way to inject assembly code, but I don't know exactly if they use the same bank system that Banjo-Kazooie does. But moving on. So what makes Banjo-Kazooie different? I've already talked about like SM64. You don't start off with all the moves. Ocarina of Time, puzzles aren't specific for certain items, and for DK64, there's a heavy emphasis on using the moves for mobility instead of utility. And so I can't just copy their logic. I can copy kind of their format, more or less, but it's not a matter of you got A, you can do B. It's a matter of, do you have A, B, C, D, or E? Does the player know that they can use C through E? And then they can do this. So a little more complicated in terms of logic there. But going back to just a casual perspective, what gives Banjo-Kazooie its charm? Why do people like Banjo-Kazooie? The dialogue's quirky. I don't think in any other N64 game, besides obviously like Tooie, is there dialogue that matches Banjo-Kazooie's. King K. Rool's kind of funny, but I like, you don't hear from Bowser really. You don't hear from Ganon. The most you get like laughter in terms of Legend of Zelda is watching Game Grumps do the Zelda voice. So the dialogue is a bit of the charm. The worlds are beautiful, like the texturing and stuff. Whenever I think of SM64, I think of random fucking levels. Like why is like the everything just randomly floating? Is it just to be hard as a platformer? Whereas Banjo-Kazooie is like, I can't think of a single detail in Banjo-Kazooie where I'm like, why the fuck is this like this, right? The Rainbow Cruise, whatever, for SM64 is literally a bunch of like, oh, random platform here, there's a ship. Whereas Gobi Valley, for example, is, oh, these are magic carpets because it's an Egyptian kind of level, and magic carpets are kind of reminiscent of like the Middle East. So, just the worlds are just, they make sense to me at least, right? There might be something sort of like, why the fuck is it like that? Well, here and there, it's not gonna be perfect, but there's probably a reasoning for when it was developed. The music in the game is gorgeous. Now, the hard part about modifying the music is that they use different tracks, and whenever you hit a certain point of the map, the track might change. So for example, whenever you are in the layer, it goes boom 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 boom, but then you go to Mumbo's Mountain, it goes and like the music change, but you can still technically hear the layer theme within that. So that's something like that's amazing about the game. And the last one, and I know you guys have probably been staring at the screen and dread this one, is Furnace Fun. No other game on the N64, or actually no other game really pulls off Furnace Fun like Banjo-Kazooie. Tooie has a quiz kind of system, not exactly like Kazooie, because there's no board. There's no decision in what questions you pick, right? It's just a random, do you know what this answer is? And Ukulele is kind of on the same lines where it's like, do you remember this aspect? Even Nuts and Bolts was like, what was the first Banjo-Kazooie game or whatever? Like, where did Banjo first appear? But it's not like a board where you can see, hey, I don't want to do a picture question, I'm gonna go this way instead. At some point you are forced to do like a Banjo-Kazooie like world question, and you're forced to do a death question, which could be any like square or any category. But for the most part, you can choose your path. You can even choose to go for the one-ups on the board if you really wanted to. I don't know why you would. One-ups don't mean shit in Banjo-Kazooie, but they're there. and there's like health along the lines. You know, you use your health bar in order to get to the end. So the more you've explored the world, the more health, like empty honeycombs you've collected in order to get your max health, the easier that board even gets, right? So in that sense, it kind of feels like what's it, impossible layer, or I think there's like a Donkey Kong Returns kind of thing, maybe. I don't know, but Furnace Fun is a unique aspect of Banjo-Kazooie that I don't think any other game can even replicate. So, um, despite, and I'll get to reasons why people do and don't like it, but from a casual versus a competitive perspective, casuals care about the dialogue. Whenever I watch people play the BK Rando on Twitch, I see a lot of these speedrunners just LRB whatever, LRB whatever, and so to skip the dialogue, and then they're like, wait, was I supposed to know something from there? And it's like, well, your habits are there. You think you know enough, but you don't know what features you picked. Whereas casuals, some of them skip it because they didn't realize that it is custom dialogue. Like they were like talking to chat or something like that. But for the most part, once they realize that there's custom dialogue, they will like check to make sure that there's custom dialogue first. So they do care about that. Competitives don't. Casuals will use intended strategies, like for example, the stealth stride. They will use waiting boots, whereas speedrunners might be like, yo, I can take damage. I have enough health, and so that has to be factored in. Casuals think Rusty Bucket Bay is too hard, whereas competitive players are like, oh yeah, we know that you can glitch through this window and get to the end easily. So that has to be taken into account for the logic. And then casuals, not all of them, some of them don't like it because they don't want to talk to all the Brintildas. They don't memorize all the answers, and like they don't want to deal with that. But whenever I watch a casual play Furnace Fun, for even the first time, they seem to enjoy it. Because they're like, oh, I remember that. I remember doing this. I remember doing that. And the game kind of forces you to play a lot of the game before you even get to Furnace Fun. You need 765 notes, which would require you to be in at least 8 worlds. So, but the thing with Furnace Fun is the first time you play it, it kind of has charm. And by the 1,000th time you've played it, you're like, okay, maybe this isn't as fun as I thought it would be. I don't want to go see the Brinteldas and stuff. And that's where the competitive aspect comes in, where they have a skip. Shout out to Ninpok, where they skip the entire, not the entire, but a good majority of the Furnace Fun board. Now, I'm gonna go, I guess, split this up into appealing to casuals and appealing to competitive people. For casuals, we can give them custom dialogue. We can make the easier logic or quality of life features. So, for example, I mentioned this before. The life mechanic is stupid because if you die, you already lose all your notes. If you game over, you lose all your notes, and then you have to go from the start of the game back to just the world. So, like, you're there anyway. Like, why are there lives in the game? Because you have to. So, stuff like that can be removed. There's also like I can make it so that, falling in a machine room is forgiving. I remove the death plan at the bottom, so you just void out and then you go back to the start of the level and you don't lose any progress there. So I think people will like that as well. But I want to focus more on Furnace Fun. Now, I could change the entire board to be where have you been questions, like the picture questions, and basically turn Furnace Fun into GeoGuessr, which I think would be kind of cool. I could change the entire board to be Banjo-Kazooie questions, where all of a sudden they ask you, what move did you learn in Mumbo's Mountain? And it's not Talon Trot. Or, not the other 2 moves that you learned, the Beak Buster and Eggs. So I think in order to appeal to the casuals, I need to make the worlds worth exploring. And to do that, I think by changing up the dialogue to like make sense for like the custom world or whatever, like the way things have changed. The aesthetics for the game, like maybe make Treasure Trove Cove look like Rusty Bucket Bay, and then making Furnace Fun reward you for all that exploring you did, would probably make the randomizer fun for casuals. Now we're gonna go to competitives who do not care for anything I just said. They get to a move, and they don't want to memorize the okay, chicken legs, it's your time to shine, because for me, I happen to know that that's I think that's flight pad, or either or that's shock jump pad. Either way, I don't even memorize it. Basically, whenever I do that, I just skip it, and if I see I get red feathers, then I know it's flight. So I can make the dialogue just say flight. Done. You know it's bottles. You know he's teaching you a move. Go at it. You have flight now. Done. You know, there's like the intro text that you can all already skip. And I don't know how to skip the Waza text. I can probably try to figure out how to do that. But yeah. So shortening the text like that. Making a tab specifically for speedrunners of which glitches they like to do, what they know how to do, and we can make the logic dependent on whether they know how to do these glitches and exploits or not. And so it would have to be under an advanced tab so like casuals don't accidentally click on it. But I think that appealing to breaking logic like that would appeal to them, and just challenge on how much they actually know the game. A lot of speedrunners know how to do the glitches and exploits, but they don't really know the game. So, it might be fun to kind of challenge them and make their chat be like, "Oh, look at you! You've played how many hours in this game? You don't know how to do that." So, additional difficulty settings. So, like, you can in version 2 you can already make it so that you're like always at 1 health. But I can now adjust that to however much you want. You know, getting honeycombs actually does raise your health. So maybe make that more of a challenge for them. I tried making it so that like enemies have different properties. So like some enemies were immune to some moves, but that ended up just making it so that speedrunners were just avoiding all of the enemies. So I might want to make it so that like these moves still work, but it just takes more moves to hit them. Or if they touch you, like you know, because you didn't attack them, they just kill you or do twice as much damage, something like that. And then they already have the option to skip Furnace Fun because they don't care about it. That's completely fine. Now, there's one more section I want to talk about, and that is appealing to BK modders. So, there are a lot of people in the BK modding community that rely on Banjo's backpack in order to make mods. And there are a lot of limits when it comes to Banjo's backpack, and I want to try to remove those needs. Now, am I trying to remove Banjo's backpack? No. And I will repeat that for the people in the back who think I have a conspiracy that I want to kill Banjo's backpack. Yes and no. I want it to die, but I want it to naturally die. I want people to want to build up on the community. I don't just want it to go away for no reason. So in case anyone was worried about that. But I do want to make sure that you can inject your own files, like music files and stuff like that. You know, some speeches in Banjo's backpack get messed up, so like you can change it there. There's like restrictions on what moves you start the game with. And it's either you don't know any moves or you have all the moves. And I saw what what's their face? You know, the Banjo's backpack team was trying to do when they made it so you can learn all moves. And I think it's funny. But there is a more efficient way to do it now that we can actually modify the code a little bit. And then I want BK modders to just look at what I'm trying to do with the game and what features there are and be like, hey, you know, it'd be a fun idea. Like for example, Furnace Fun GeoGuessr is just like an idea, right? If someone wanted to make Banjo solely, which is something I want to do, but I keep getting lazy about it, they could do that. And hopefully this inspires some people. But sorry, that's like a 30-minute video, geez. It's just like me ranting, but hopefully this gives people an idea of why it's taking so long to make version 3 and an idea of what's planned. feel free to comment of like what you want to see. But know that I am obligated, not obligated, I am allowed to just say no, your idea is dumb. Um or hey, if you really want this idea, you should implement it yourself because I don't agree with this idea. Um I just got so many like weird ideas of like can you add a detransformation in the layer at the door of Grunty so that people can get there as the bee? It's like, what? No. Why would I do that? Um so yeah. Anyway, thanks guys if you got this far. Um you know, yeah, have a good day.